This is the Oceans and Marine Health Presentation on Governance in Sociotechnical Systems by Danica Tran, Jordan Wageman, John May, and Alex Ostrom.
So the topic that my group and I decided to go further into detail on in relation to marine and ocean health, and also in regards to socio-technical systems, is ocean acidification. But before we get into the nitty-gritty of governing it, we decided to give you some background on what exactly it is. As most of you may know, ocean acidification is when too much CO2 is in the atmosphere, then being absorbed by the seawater. In turn, this makes the ocean more acidic than it should otherwise be. Obviously, the issue of ocean acidification is global. This is why we believe in order to decrease the amount of CO2 in the atmosphere, there should not only be domestic but global policies set into place. Also, one of the many difficulties with governing something as impactful and enormous as the ocean is because it affects everyone. Without a central governing power, the ocean remains international waters. However, regulations have been put into place all across the globe in hopes of protecting it together. The negative impacts on ocean acidification has begun to spread from daily harm to the ocean's creatures to now affecting humans.
The free rider issue is when people benefit without any or little contribution. It is often seen within public goods. Since no one nation owns the ocean, it introduces the issue of who's responsible for it. Every nation uses it, benefits from it, and also hurts it by producing so much pollution. Therefore, the ocean acidification issue is everyone's responsibility. However, big emitter nations need to take on more action if they have the ability to. With this, only some nations are working to reduce their greenhouse gas emissions, and yet all of society will benefit from it. It is already hard to convince nations to limit their CO2 emissions, as society is coal-powered and we're so used to it. People do not want to spend the money investing in clean energy and making the switch. It is even harder with the free rider problem, as nations may feel less inclined to become involved since they think that they can make other nations deal with it and they'll still benefit, that they don't have to worry about it. But then this may lead to little or even no change at all. It is important that all nations take accountability and make changes for the public good as a whole, no matter if they see other nations doing it or not. The Iron Triangle is the policy-making relationship between three different actors. These actors are interdependent as they need each other in order to be successful in their goals. First, looking domestically, the U.S.'s three actors include the U.S. government, administrative agencies, and interest groups. Some examples of agencies and/or interest organizations are the EPA, the Smithsonian, or even universities. These specific ones depend on the government for funding so they can study climate change, like monitoring the ocean's pH levels. Then, to discuss the international Iron Triangle system, it would include intergovernmental organizations, nations, and interest groups. To name a couple specific international actors, it would include the United Nations, any nation like the US, and the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. They all depend on each other, whether it's for their own interests, funds for responsible research and innovation of new technologies, or information to create new international science policies. The interconnectedness of the Iron Triangle is so important as the actors cannot work without each other and they benefit for the public good.
The governance of the oceans in the U.S. is done by the administration agency, the National Ocean and Atmospheric Administration. The NOAA works with the legislative branch, who writes laws based on what can be done in the oceans, and the executive branch, which executes the laws with the Coast Guard or the Environmental Protection Agency. Trump's executive order advanced the economic, security, and environmental interests of the United States is not focused at all on bettering the ocean's health. Trump has set in place a policy on improving the economic benefits from the oceans and coastal areas around the U.S., while the environmental interests stated in this order do not apply to helping the marine life, but the idea of a good image. This order implies increased protection and use for the oceans for transportation and trade, increasing overall pollution in the ocean and a lack of care towards the life within. Even with Trump's executive order and the promise to aid the ocean's health, even in a small way, he has ignored many policies that have come to his office. The Coastal Communities Acidification Act was written to aid in the vulnerability and rise of acidification along coastal cities and towns. The impact from a rise in acidification would not only alter the entire way of life for many people living in these areas, but in a time destroy the marine life and ecosystem along with these coastal regions. This bill was approved and pushed in 2019, yet not yet passed.
As far as international policies are concerned, the Kyoto Protocol was put into action in February of 2005 and includes 192 parties. This protocol sets boundaries for a focus on more industrialized countries rather than those who are less developed, as a means for them to greatly reduce greenhouse gas emissions. There are currently 37 countries who are bound to this protocol. This protocol is an example of a free rider issue in the ways that the more industrialized countries are lessening their greenhouse gas emissions more than the countries who are less developed, meaning that they are not contributing in the same way. While the Kyoto Protocol focuses on more industrialized countries, the Paris Climate Agreement looks to all countries to reduce their greenhouse gas emissions. As of right now, there are 186 countries that make up over 90% of global emissions. These countries have discussed their own reduction targets, which help to set goals for the amount of greenhouse gas they wish to reduce. Although there are no set requirements for how much emissions need to be cut in each country, there are some expectations depending on emission rates, their capabilities to reduce, and how industrialized the country is. One last alliance to focus on is the International Alliance to Combat Ocean Acidification, which is funded by Leonardo DiCaprio. This alliance was created by California, Oregon, and Washington to globally fight against ocean acidification and other issues that are a large threat to oceans and their ecosystems. Their three primary goals include evaluating the problem of ocean acidification within policies and politics, creating plans for each alliance partner, as well as allowing for safety in international agreements within the ocean. Both the Paris Climate Agreement and the International Alliance to Combat Ocean Acidification can be examples of the Iron Triangle, and that they are both policy-making relationships that include multiple actors, where they can be interdependent but are more successful when put together.
After looking at various ways that the U.S. and different societies govern and try to control ocean acidification, one umbrella term that we have failed to mention thus far is the media. Media can play a crucial role in informing society, and it can also influence society to think a particular way about one particular issue. Media is a very powerful tool that I think can be used in great ways, and especially for the governance and to slow the roll of ocean acidification. Like I said, ocean acidification answers questions and helps to advise the public on ocean and marine health topics. Earlier I said that media was an umbrella term, and I say that because something that is frequently associated with the term media is also social media. Social media plays a vital role in sharing and visualizing information related to ocean acidification and ocean and marine health. There are various websites, social media pages that can help visualize and share information more easily and more readily than what you could find on TV and stuff like that, because there are websites and pages that are directly related to ocean and marine health.